Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. As I promised, I said I would do just a really quick video on the PLTR trade today. I felt, well, first off, I've been saying for a long time now that I'm going to start posting some more YouTube content, which I clearly have not been doing. And I really felt like this specific trade was actually a really great example of price action that's followed through. And it's actually a good example of both a long and a short trade. So I kind of wanted to share this one with you guys. It's also a really popular name and they obviously had earnings. So what a great time to kind of show you the way that I traded this one personally today. I'm going to be going over the long trade, the short trade, the little chain that I was kind of seeing there, and a cross comparison of how you can actually compare both the actual technical analysis on the chart in cross comparison to the option chain bars on there too. So like, for instance, like the candlesticks on the chain itself for whichever calls or puts that you're trading. So we'll kind of do a really probably quick 10-15 minute video. I'm not going to take too long here. I've been streaming all day and I'm pretty freaking tired. So I'll try to keep this short and sweet. So obviously I've already got my levels and everything on here. I'll kind of go clean on this so we can have a brand new workspace with just PLTR on here. And I am using Benzinga just because it's a great platform and I really love, and this is like nothing for like affiliations or anything like that, even though I am an affiliate of theirs. It really is a great tool because it shows you the pre-market and the after-hour sticks or levels on these sticks, right? So it kind of factors that in. Not too many platforms do that. So that's something that I really like about Benzinga. You're welcome for the free advertisement there. So let's get started here. So for starters, we're going to just start off with this daily chart. So they had reported earnings better than expected, and they raised guidance. So starting with the open today. So I'm always like, I had that interview with Benzinga, I think just yesterday, where I talked about that open close strategy that I'm doing. This is a really good one. And it's also a post earnings play, which is my favorite, right? Like I love playing things after the earnings have come out. So then that way you don't really get killed on the premiums. You de-risk because you already know how it's reported. And something like PLTR, it formed a really nice base before heading into earnings. So that was one clue that it wasn't priced in, right? So if this was priced in, I would think it would have been back here. Like, let's say they were reporting back over here, that would have likely been a priced in earnings. And sometimes I also like going into TrendSpider and just kind of checking their previous earnings reports to see how it's performed historically in the past. So for starters here, I'm going to use just by eyeballing this when I was looking in the pre-market, clearly it opened above that top wick there. So that's my first level of major resistance. And I'll start doing a combination of the two. So that's kind of like that lower stick support. This is obviously an open above the previous day's high and the close, but I'm not going to be using those as the key support levels. I'm going to be using that higher stick. So this is your higher support strategy that I use. And that's going to be that 23.50 and 52. And then just for really brief starters here, we're going to apply just that daily level there at that 24.26. I usually hack into a 4-hour to kind of see if there's some midpoints of resistance in there. And you can really clearly see the points here on PLTR where really those two sticks. There is a higher stick right up there. I see a bit of resistance right in here, right? You guys see that? Put that on your charts. I'm going to apply a little bit more right up in there. And then I'll usually flip over to, and this is for something that I'm expecting a bigger break. Okay, so we're looking for a bigger break. So now I've got my 2-hour spot in there, which really aligns well with that 4-hour. And then we're going to go into the hourly here. We're just going back in time. I want to make sure I have all the key spots on there, right? So on the hourly now, I'm seeing there is an upper band there. I want to flip over to a weekly chart. So I want to see the potential it has to move. If it cracks this level here, I'm skipping over all that noise on the daily, right? So we're skipping over essentially anything right in here. If it cracks, that was clearly a bear flag to that downside. I want to just go right to a weekly and see what's on there. So the weekly, I'm seeing that range right in here, right down in there, that upper wick right up in here, and clearly some higher candles right up in that range there. And you can actually see the wick. If you just start looking left, you can kind of see the higher range of resistance up here. So kind of right in there is where it stalled today. But we'll skip over to a monthly. So here's our monthly chart now. And I'm just going to use the top of this candle here for the monthly and this monthly wick. Okay, so, and you can apply all the midpoints if you wanted to. So if you want to apply the levels kind of in between here, you can go right ahead. And you can do that on the weekly if you wanted to. This is just so you have them on the chart before the trade starts, right? So we're kind of just, I'm using the weekly and the monthly because it makes it a bit easier for newer traders when you're looking at some of these levels. So, okay, now that we've got the levels on here, we're going to go right back to our opening stick this morning. Okay, so the levels we had looked at were that 23.50 and 52. That's that upper stick in this wick right here, right? We want it opening above that, and it did. It had a big gap up in the pre-market, but we also want it back testing and bouncing right off, right? So that's how that's where I'm looking for an entry on this post earnings play. So the catalyst is they had good earnings. So going all the way back here on the 1 minute this morning, you can see in the pre-market there was a nice gap over that 2304, which was what? The previous day's high, right? So it gapped over the previous day's high right in that pre-market session. You can see the break over that 23.50 and 52 right up in here. And then your first morning stick. So we're moving forward to the morning stick here. This is all the pre-market action, right? So you can see in the pre-market, it actually did hit 24.75 resistance, and that's where it failed, right? This is right before the open here, actually that first minute stick. So it hit that 24.60, it slightly broke, and then we have a bigger break right here, right at the opening stick. So here's our opening stick right here, if you guys can see that, right? That's right at that 930, 931. It still opened above that major spot, right? So we had actually opened at 24.25 and we broke over that 24.75. So that 24.79 is going to be your first stick break. That's what I call that. So we'll kind of put that on the chart here. Here's the back test. So this is where I'm looking for a point of entry. I'm looking to see when it made that really nasty bearish candle here on that top, I'm looking for that 23.50 and 23.52 back test. Right? That's the spot we're looking for entry and we want it to hold. Boom, it holds off that 23.59. Beauty, right? So, okay, I'm looking at this. It's making a little mini flag here on that 1 minute, if you can see that here. And of course, it's flagging between that 23.95 and 24 resistance point. But when I'm seeing these walls build up like that, so you're kind of seeing these nice little walls kind of building with red and green on both ends, another flag at that stick high resistance up there, at that 24.75 spot, I always want to see things take out levels in a single stick. So here's your single stick break, right? That's over that 24.75 and 79 in that single stick. But more importantly, what is this forming right here, right? Like I want to see that bigger picture. This is clearly forming something. So now that I've got my entry at that bottom there, and you'll actually see, so here's the 5 minute PLTR option chain for the $24 calls. You can see that really, really nice bottom right here, right? A little bit of a hammer right at that support line there, right before that break. So that's another thing that I'm kind of cross comparing is also the option chain. But look at how nice this 10-minute chain is. So that's a bit of a tweezer bottom there at that 10-minute spot. And to me, that's looking really, really good, right? So I love 10-minute charts. They're my absolute favorite. So I usually kind of alternate between that 2 and the 10. So when you're looking at the 2-minute chart, even from early this morning, you can kind of see that flag break. Here's the 5 minute here, and you can see that really big one minute stick combined into the two is that takeout of the 74 and 75. But look at this. Look at this PLTR. There's the 5, and you can kind of see that really nice kind of double hammer there. What does that usually indicate? Whenever you see kind of walls forming like this with really big red and green sticks that are leveled, you're likely forming a tweezer on a wider scale, right? So here's my beautiful 10-minute tweezer on PLTR right off that bottom support out of that hammer on that chain. So great, this is a double confirmation for me, right? So I'm long the $24 calls. I'm looking to play this uptrend on this break. I get this really, really nice gap open higher. And the most important part here is this is kind of breaking on that first 10, right? So we're working our way into that 10-minute time frame here. Here's your gap open higher. If you guys can see that right over this tweezer right here. So we had an opening gap higher, a continuation and a break of that high. And again, we're using all those single minute sticks. So I want to see it break my major points of resistance. And on the daily, one of the biggest points of resistance today on PLTR was this spot right up in here, right? It was that 24.23 and that 24.26 spot. So I know that that's super major for something like PLTR. So as I'm watching here, that's kind of the first major point of resistance, which it took it out in the pre-market already, right? And it took it out right here. Here's that single stick break again. So it comes out and it tries to break. It fails right below there. You can see when it back tested that 24.60 spot, which was what? That was that pre-market level that it had failed earlier, but it's still holding above where that 2-minute flag was created right here. Create some higher lows, and here it's kind of extending. This is a bit of a squeeze. And this is where you get those single minute breaks. So here's that 1-minute break over that 25.10, 19.20, and the test of the 25.37. Fails just slightly below the 25.37 at 25.35. And again, that was that 4-hour wick, right, that we had looked at. So if you're going back in here and you're going back and checking, we're kind of playing between those higher sticks and those breaks. So now we're playing within that 25.20 stick and that 25.34 wick, right? And we ended up spotting those higher channels of resistance around that 25.90. And I believe that 54 spot, which I'm not sure if I have it indicated on that chart that we just did together, but we can go back and double check that. So there was definitely some resistance there at, I think it was 25. Yeah, that 25.94 and that 25.56 and 57. So let's just make sure we have that level in here in case we don't. I don't think we do. And I believe that was one that I had spotted on that half-hour time frame. So here's the half-hour chart. We're going to go a bit deeper in here. You see that 25.56 wick, and I had applied these earlier on the chart before that break, but I had just missed putting those on here on that half-hour chart. So there's the 25.45 and 25.56 spots on that half hour. I kind of like doing that just to make sure that nothing is missed. I want to make sure I'm capturing all the midpoints kind of in between there in case there's a big break, because in my mind, something can't just break up to 25 and then rip over to 26. There has to be some midpoints of resistance, right? So kind of like there was back down in here. So now that we're looking at it right up in here, I'm also seeing some more resistance at that 25, what is that, 25.63, and then that 25.69 spot and 26.13. So now that I've got all the major points of resistance on here, and my apologies, I should have put those on there first. I'm continuing to see this continuation here, and it's just breaking and breaking out of every single key spot. So right here, when it took out that 25.34 and 37 spot, which we knew was that major wick on all 4 time frames, whether it was the half hour, the hourly, kind of right up in here. If You guys can see that 35 wick and on that 15. So let's go back to the 15 here. Right up in here. There we go. Perfect. Okay. You know, you're making some major breaks there of some highs. So that 25.37 spot, when that came back and back tested that 25.20 and 19 right up in here, and it really was, it was actually flagging and making a flag at that 10.45 spot. So it was into another 15-minute candle into that last half hour stick. So I knew that was continuing to break. So some more higher lows forming here. And then you get your second, another single stick break here at that 25.37. If you pay attention here, you see how it kind of cracked that 25.37 and the 25.43 and 45 spot in that single stick, right? So this thing is really pushing. And then I noticed right up in here, when it snapped the 25.56 in the single stick, this thing was continuing to flag. And because we were using that 10-minute chart, that was the breakout that I had. I wanted to see if it was continuing to make another flag, which it did. Look at that flag right here. So here's our flag at that 25.33 spot on the 10-minute out of this beautiful tweezer. And then you get this really nice break, right? And where does it stall? These were all spots that were hidden. You really could not see them on a daily. You kind of have to go really deep in to find them. And again, apologies for missing that half hour or that 15 slot. I wish we kind of did this in real time today so that you guys could have watched the whole trade. It was pretty epic. So here's that break right here. It really looks like it was continuing because again, you see that single stick break over the 56. You see that next single break over the 25.69. And then you get a stick high of 25.76, but it kind of stalls in there. And there's a pretty wide gap, right? And I'm sure there could have been a midpoint at the 10-minute chart that I could have missed in there. So if you go a little bit further out, you could probably find some more and more spots. Sometimes it's a bit hard because it doesn't always go too far back in time. But I know that that was kind of topping out here. So that's where I was looking at that exit on that play on PLTR, because that was the one time that it didn't continue to break out of that stick. And I got my 10-minute flag breakout. I got my multi-minute flag breaks here. And I really wasn't anticipating more than that 25.56. Like that was my personal target on this thing. That was kind of just an extension on this run. And I figured it was going to continue when it snapped that spot there, right? So right over here, when it took it out in that single stick, I was like, okay, I could probably leave a runner or two because this thing is looking super bullish, especially out of that 10-minute flag. So as it approached that spot there, let's go right back. You get that top on the 10-minute, right? And you get that really nasty looking candle on that single minute stick. But more importantly, there was a really bearish pattern that formed, right? And it didn't just form on there. So, okay, here's my 1 minute. And you can see my really pretty tweezer top. You guys see that there, right? That's the tweezer top right in here. That's on that continuation and the extension. I was only aiming for 25.56. It looked more bullish because of that 10-minute flag and tweezer. So I played that extension of that run, right? And we caught that little bit of an extra move, and then that opening candle to that downside on that tweezer top, that looked pretty bearish to me. And then at that point, we were out of the play. But when it formed this candle right here, I was like, okay, that right there looks like it's forming something else. And I actually had noticed too that it wasn't really just on the actual chart, right? So aside from the chart having that pull and that extension, so there's our 10-minute breakout here. Look at that look at that evening star. Do you see that there? So for those that don't really know, kind of pull up an example here. This was actually our trade today. So when we took it off, so there was that evening star, right? And I noticed that evening star, and then I figured it could actually make a bit of a bear flag. And that's exactly what it was doing there. So that's an evening star right at the top out of that beautiful 10-minute break, right? So, and we had mentioned that really early. So evening star possible in that 10-minute, right? And look at how great it looks. Like, it's actually quite crazy how leveled it was of an evening star. And check this out. Here's the 10-minute option chain. Do you guys see this? Look at that. That was the $24 call. So that's that big break. Look at this really, really nice bull flag here into that extension of that break. Boom. You get that evening star. So, and that open lower on that 10-minute for the option chain, that's your clue there. So it formed a tweezer top on the 1 minute. That's your first signal. Second, it went a little bit more than I actually had thought it would over that 56 spot. But of course, I'm playing the trend. So if I'm seeing a double flag on a 10-minute and the 10-minute option chain, I'm going to catch that extra bit, right? Like, if it's squeezing, it's squeezing. You don't go against the trend. The trend is your friend until it's not. So it was our friend here on this big opening gap. Boom. Super crazy. Like, I'm sorry, I'm kind of a nerd, but I love when I see patterns like that play out super well. So we caught that really, really, really nice evening star, and we played it both long and short off that 10-minute on both time frames. So it's nice when you can use that same time frame for both sides of the trade. There was that nasty bear flag on the downside, and it just continued and continued down. But the key here was trying to figure out the bottom, right? So when it broke below where that flag was created, I figured, okay, well, I always put those first stick highs, right? Because they matter. That's kind of the spot that I'm using for support. So if I'm using my first stick high, I really want to make sure it's holding around those levels here, right? That'll usually become your intraday support on the short side when things are trying to find support. And if we kind of just clear the chart here, I'll remove all the drawings. Here's our earlier stick highs. You can really, really see how nicely that held support. Do you guys see that there? To the penny, 24.64. Crazy, isn't it? And it's kind of just been hovering there until that last minute there in the after hours, it had a big pull. So that was my long and short trade today on PLTR. Really, really great patterns all across between multiple time frames. And I also actually wanted to show you that half-hour top here. So there was a half-hour tweezer top in addition to that, and you can kind of see how that played out there. So multiple patterns, multiple breaks, really key on the opening, really key on the back test. Those are all things that are going to make you a better trader, because you're really factoring in your risk and reward ratios. All these things matter. We went in and we dug deep into that 15, 30 hourly, 2-hour, 4-hour chart. We went all the way out to a weekly and a monthly, because we know if something's breaking out of a major range like this, anything that's gap opening up above a major spot like these sticks right here, they usually end up getting a big break. And if it's a post earnings play, that's the perfect opportunity. It's like a recipe for just for a great play, right? Like, you've got the cash, you've got the great chart and the catalyst. So there's a lot of really great things to work with here, and you just have to kind of take advantage of it. But this is a good way to kind of see both sides of the trades, because not everything continues, right? There's usually tops and there's midpoints. And sometimes if something's giving you a little bit extra, just be a little cautious, because I wasn't really aiming for that 25.99 or 25.75 spot. I was really just looking for that 25.37 and that 25.56. But hey, that thing wanted to take out those single stick breaks, and it wanted to make another tweezer and another flag. Then I'm going to play the trend, right? So Trend is your friend. All right, that pretty much concludes that. So I hope you guys find that helpful. I really wanted to kind of highlight both sides of a trade, how to change your mind from being a bull to a bear so that you can really capture a full-blown potential on something, and see the bigger picture, because there's always a bigger picture to paint. So if you guys like this video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe, and then maybe I'll start actually doing some more of these in the future, right? So this is pretty much my first official YouTube video that I'm putting out strictly for YouTube purposes. So make sure you guys are giving me some good feedback, or even constructive feedback, or other topics you guys want me to maybe discuss in the future, because maybe I'll actually start posting to YouTube. Thank you.